It's been said that character is revealed by how one behaves when no one is looking. One of my fundamental beliefs is you learn a lot about someone by how they respond when they hear the word no. Everyone loves it when they hear the word yes. Everyone loves a boss who says yes, 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 yes. Everyone responds well when they get their way, when they get to do what they want, when they want to do it. But what does one say and or do when they hear the word no? Of course, disappointment is only natural, but how much does a person dig in? Does a person choose the route of I'll show you or just watch me? Little kids do it, so do some big people. In a similar vein, I think a lot is revealed when someone is faced with a great challenge, a sudden detour, a reversal of fortune, or keeping with our theme, when one faces a giant. You know, an issue, a problem, a roadblock, a life-changing, life-altering event. It's easy to get frustrated. It's only natural to act overwhelmed, yet, as we all discover, somewhere along the way, there are headwinds in life. There are obstacles, there are detractors, there are people who don't think that we can do it, and sometimes, as I will talk about in a little bit, sometimes our biggest opponent is ourselves. Now, before I get where I'm going, what is a giant? Well, the truth is people have similar and different giants. For instance, to someone who is quite shy, to the person who dislikes being in public to the point where going to a party is like having the flu. And then you have an extrovert who can't wait for that party. It can be hard for the one who's extroverted to understand the giant that is for the introvert, and vice versa. Of all the approaches that I studied on my way to get a psychology degree, I resonated the most with something called Rogerian therapy. It was named after Carl Rogers. In a nutshell, it's based on the idea that the client knows what is best. And the therapist's role is to facilitate an environment in which the client can bring about a positive change. What I appreciate about it the most is that when done properly, it doesn't create a dependence upon the therapist. It's not like, hey, I know it's Monday morning, I don't know what to do, so can you tell me what to do? Hey, thanks, I'll call you this afternoon, I'll call you tonight, I'll call you tomorrow. It gets old. It also gives credence and value to what the client is thinking and feeling. For instance, how do you like it when you say that you are encumbered by something, you're facing a giant, and then you tell someone, I'm facing a giant, and they'll say, well, that's no big deal. Let me tell you the big giant that I am facing. It can feel like we're battling alone when that happens. And one last thing before I get to my 3 points. These two things I think I know. My dear wife reminded me that 2 days ago was the 32nd anniversary of my ordination, so I'm old. But number one, through all those years of walking with people through giants of pain and struggle, there is no shortcut through pain. There is no shortcut through pain. There are not 3 easy peasy quick steps to follow when you're facing a giant. Don't go buy a book, read the Bible. Lean on Jesus. Take a deep breath. Then after a few good cries, because you got to cry, you got to whine. I'm a good whiner. Then it's time to put on a hard hat and go through the storm. It's time to face and fight the giant, whoever and whatever that is. Sooner or later, David had to go, hey, big guy, bring it on. So with that as a preamble to the sermon series, Facing Giants, here are my 3 thoughts I have when it comes to finding a giant called doubt. As I like to do, I want us to all start the race on the starting line. I want our feet to be in the same place, our mind to be in the right form. Doubt defined is to call into question the truth of, to lack confidence in, and to consider unlikely. Got it? Good? Let's start. Point number 1, having doubts about oneself. You can read if you're online. If you're about my age, you know where I'm going with this. All the young people are looking and go, I don't know this. Well, I don't know most of what goes on in your life either. I'm trying, but I can't keep up. But if you're circa my age, close to 60, watch Saturday Night Live, Stuart Smalley, played by our former Senator Al Franken, who went to Harvard, and he was an actor. He was a comedian before he served us. And everyone thought that this was pablum. Everyone thought this was nonsense. But it's not nonsense. A parody is only effective if it's ingrained in a lot of truth. If it's not, it's folly. If it's not, it's pablum. And I should have known that when I resonated with this character, I was going to study psychology because I saw a lot of truth. They were mocking it in some ways because that's the show. But he did have some nuggets like compare and despair. And you can think it's Stuart Smalley, and he had a bad haircut, and he had bad nonverbals, and he lacked confidence. But if you do compare, you will despair. I deserve good things. I'm entitled to my share of happiness. I refuse to beat myself up. I am an attractive person. I am fun to be with, he would say. But even if you want to giggle, look at all that. Wouldn't that be a good mantra to go through life? Yes. Labels disable. And because he said it, because he seemed like a goofball when he was doing it, but don't labels disable? Think of a good label that we have for people. Think of a good label we have for culture. Think of a good label that we give people that we don't fully appreciate. I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me. This was his tagline, and he wrote a book, and everyone laughed at him, and he made millions on it. But is there anything wrong with saying I'm good enough? I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me? It's not a bad start to a morning. This is what I have to say. Having belief in yourself is a very fine line to walk. So, too much confidence equals arrogance, conceit, and pomposity. I always wanted to use that word, so it took me 32 years, and I can mark it off. But you know what it is to be pompous. But here's where I'm going to lean in a little bit. If somebody has confidence and someone does not appreciate you, then you're arrogant. Then you're full of conceit and you're pompous. And we throw that at people that we don't fully appreciate. Yes, we do, because every leader, every athlete, everyone who's a teacher, professor, nurse, doctor, chiropractor, go on and on and on. You have to have competence. And if you like that person, if they embody what you and I like, then we will say that they are professional, that they are competent. But then we have this fine line that as soon as if you tell me no too much or I don't like how you roll, then you're too confident. And the antonym is not enough confidence, is skepticism and rejection and ambiguity. How do we walk down this little line, and how do we teach our children to be confident, but then not too confident? A lot of people have doubts about themselves. Looks. How many billions of dollars a year do people spend on stuff? How many people do you see in Hollywood that at some point they have so much surgery that they always look like they're surprised? Their natural look is, and you're like, you're trying too hard. Things are going to fall apart. Things are going to leak. Things are going to crawl. Things on your face, they won't go well as you go through the decades. But you know what? Age gracefully and feel okay about your looks. But a lot of us have doubts about our looks. Height. My brother's 6'1". Dear Lord, what happened to me? My dad's 5'6", so I could have been worse. But I wish I were taller. In heaven, I've requested on my form 6'4". Please. Weight. Feel me? Intelligence. Yeah. I'm going to pause a few times when I preach today. Not because I don't know what I'm doing, but because I kind of know what I'm doing. How often have you doubted yourself as a mother or father? Be honest. Am I a good parent? And it depends upon who you ask. And if you ask your son or daughter, at a moment when you tell them no, you stink. But actually, you might not stink because you said no. It's a serenity prayer, basically. Knowing when to say what. And they always won't like you, but they'll love you. Better they respect you. Am I too hard or too soft as a parent? Doesn't matter how old you get. Your kids are in 20s and 30s and making their own decisions and sometimes making their own money. And you want to lean in, and how much should I talk about how you raise my grandchild? It's like putting oil on a balance beam and you're trying to walk it. And you got to have confidence in yourself. And sometimes you won't be liked, and sometimes you won't like yourself, and then you got to back off, baby. It's this complex. Am I too hot or too cold? It's easy to smother your child. I think there are parents. For a while it was helicopter parents, that they sit there and hover. You talk to a teacher. Now they call them bulldozer parents because hovering wasn't enough and they didn't get their way, so they plow themselves through. This is complex, and you begin to doubt who and what you are. Some people appear as if they are brimming with confidence, but the truth is they are overcompensating for their innate distrust of their abilities. By the way, if you want to join that club, I'm the vice president. I'm not kidding. I didn't trust my abilities enough to run for president. And again, I'm not kidding. It was never my goal to serve as a senior pastor of a large church. It was never my goal to serve as a senior pastor. I know people in my seminary class who had goals for that. They have not met their goal because I think they wanted it too much. There is something about the fact there is a healthy little dose of doubt, but there's also an unhealthy dose of doubt, and we have to recognize the difference. For what it's worth, here are 3 things that can help with self-doubt. Number 1, God thinks we're totally awesome even when we're not. Pastor Sarah said that in the prayer. That means that she was listening to first service when I prayed. That's awesome. If you then who are evil know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will the Heavenly Father give to those who ask? God and Jesus are your biggest fans. And so when you begin to doubt yourself, I remember one time of the multitude of times I got in trouble with my dad. It was a daily occurrence. One time, and I told you this before, I said, Dad, I'm only human. And oh my Lord, did he go ballistic, because he said, you've been created a little lower than angels. You are the apple of God's eye. You will miss the mark, but don't ever, ever say you're only human, because you are a child of God. I was in deeper trouble for that than I was my first offense. Number 2, I think of the people in my life who think I rock even when I don't. My wife and our 3 children. Our dog Ruby thinks I'm the best person ever. The other 4 people will come home and she'll say, hi, 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 is he here? Will see me and go, finally. And I'm glad. And by the way, my mom is still the co-chair of my fan club. Who are your people? Pause. Who are your people? Who believe in you no matter what? Do you know who they are? If you know who they are and they're living, this week, text them and say, thank you for being my person. And you know who those people are? They're the people that tell you the truth. The people who tell you, I don't think you're going to wear that. That's okay. Because you know what? Wouldn't you rather know before you go in the world? I used to have a golf shirt with stripes that went this way. Yeah, I was told, yeah, you don't do that at your age. Things got to go this way when you're this height. You know what? That's love, baby. Love is not saying other people are going to think this, but good luck. But 8 times out of 10, they're going to tell you good news. If 2 times out of 10 they tell you good news, then don't listen to them. My mentor told me that if someone hasn't done your job and he or she criticizes you doing your job, you don't listen to that person because they've never done your job. Now, the director of HR for Best Buy might say that I'm wrong, but if they don't know what it is you do and they don't know your stresses, then you don't take them as gospel. In this congregation of 7,000 people, I have a handful of people on both hands that I value so much. When they tell me I'm off track, I listen to them. But when they also say you're doing awesome, I listen to them. There are other people all over in your life and my life who tell you a cacophony of things. Who are your people? And then who are you a person for? We got to put some air in people's tires because people, it's a hard place to work. It's a hard place to live in this world. And a lot of people take shots at people. And so we got to thank our people. And you have to thank your people that you have been assigned to as well. Look at what you've done as a parent, as a spouse, a grandparent, and friendships. Maybe it's because I'm getting older, because I realize I have a lot less years behind me than I have in front of me. There's a whole lot more alive at the back of the wagon than there is the team of horses. But my wife and my kids and my friends, and hopefully I live long enough to hold a grandchild. Oh, I'm going to rock that. And I hope when I die, I hope it's a good sermon, and I hope there's a sermon clip, but I hope they're able to say he was a really good husband, really good dad, he was a really good friend, and he didn't stink as a pastor. I want that order. Because the older I get, the more it's about that stuff. And also, how have you loved and served your neighbor? I'm going to leave sometime, and you're going to find somebody else to say, I like him or her too. But I'm never going to leave my family. They're never going to leave me. You're never going to leave your grandkids. There's a fragility in the things that we hold dear and the things that we hold as treasures. These things never fail us. Point number 2, having doubts about other people. Here are some interesting stats found in a recent study. A new study found that nearly 1 in 2 people believe they're the best person they know. I'm going to pause again. That's not a misprint. I thought I was misprinting it, and actually it was I don't think it was a federally funded study, which I'm glad about. But read that. My little comment is, if that's true, they don't know enough people. I know people in these congregations with whom I'm dear friends, and they are better people than me. That's why they're my friends. I'm drawn to people who are better than me in ways that I'm not. 81% people say that they believe that humankind is inherently good. Depends upon what kind of day. Depends upon if you're Costco or not. 3 in 4 people believe that they themselves are fundamentally a good person. That's pretty good. I guess people don't have a whole lot of doubt. One last thing in this regard, the respondents who were the least likely to claim that they are a good person, millennials. However, millennial respondents were also the most likely to say that they didn't think in terms of good and bad. So there's a caveat, and I'm going to leave that right there. So what do you think about people generally? Yeah, you went into a worship service where we got a little self-helpy today. What do you think about people generally? Most people are out to get you. Most people are well-intentioned and they just make mistakes. Most people are only concerned about themselves. Most people are doing the best they can considering. You doing your work? Or are you just looking at me, hoping I move on? Because I think this stuff is important stuff. There are no absolute correct answers to those questions. However, here's how I see it. How we see, view, and interpret other people affects how we treat people. This week, what do you say we strive to give people the benefit of the doubt? How about if we cut people some slack? And how about if some people cut us some slack? So last night I was working in the garage, probably doing nothing right, but I was working in the garage. I'm not that handy, and our daughter had gone to fill up her gas tank, and Costco let us down again because apparently they have hours of operation, and she was late. Again, they let me down. So she went to a different gas station, and you know how most kerfuffles happen at a gas station because you're going one way and somebody else is coming in and you're right and they're wrong, or they think the opposite. Well, our daughter came home and she was steaming mad because she was driving up and there was some confusion about who was going where. Rachel is a really good driver. She drives fast, but she's a good driver. But I knew there around a gas pump she wouldn't be speeding, I think. Anyway, she came back and said there were 6 boys, probably going to the festival schooner days over there, who were in a fancy car, so probably mom or dad's car. And they started getting mad with her, even though, according to my daughter, she didn't start it. And there were gestures and there were fingers and there were things said that I can't repeat because this is a kid's show. And I thank the Lord Jesus Christ that I wasn't there, because I would not be here right now. I would be under questioning. No, I'm not kidding. You mess with my daughter, you mess with me. And it was not good. And I think it was holistically wrong by them. But there were 6 boys in a car who probably were high school age. But that does not mean that every car that is filled with 3 to 6 high school boys is going to do the same thing. All boys of that age are not the same. All people who are this, that, or the other thing, this color, from this country, live this way, vote this way. I think the vast majority of Republicans are good people. I think the vast majority of Democrats are good people. I think the vast majority of Libertarians are good people. I have to believe that. You can choose differently, but I'm preaching. And I believe in my mind that that is more the love of God, that the vast majority of people are good, because what does it do to my heart when I look at 6 boys who jump into a car and I automatically assume with accuracy that I know exactly what they're like because of something that happened on a Saturday night? My heart, my eyes, my mind has to believe and hope that this week try to look on the positive side of people and give them the benefit of the doubt. We might be surprised. It might be surprising. Point number 3, having doubts in matter of faith. Do I have enough faith? Do I believe the right things? How much do I actually believe, and what percentage could actually be classified as hope? If someone were to say to me, if you admit, David, to being a follower of Jesus, you will be severely punished, what would I say and do? What would you? I don't know if I'd be a good martyr. Would you? Jesus is just going to forgive me anyway. I mean, Jesus forgives all sins, so. Is being impatient for Jesus to show up and make things right the same as being of little faith? Is being disappointed that God didn't seem to do more to help out the same as not being faithful? Here's something that may help us quite a bit. The original disciples missed the forest for the trees just about every single day. In fact, it's a really short list of times when the disciples actually got it right, either in the faith or action department. Perhaps their low point was the Garden of Gethsemane. Remember that? Jesus knows that he's about to be betrayed and die a painful death. He's fully human, so this is going to hurt. And he goes with a bunch of his faithful people, and says, you know what, I'm really sad, I'm really, really troubled by this, so I'm going to go off and pray, and I only have one request. Can you stay awake? He goes off and prays and says, Father, if it be your will, could you come up with plan B? Because I really don't want this. But if you want to go with me, I'm your guy. Comes back, they're asleep. He's like, seriously? I asked you to do one thing. Ask a bunch of guys to not take a nap, and they couldn't do it. So he says a second time, please stay awake. He goes and he has the same prayer, comes back, same result. Second time he says, can you just stay awake? Could you just take the cap of the toothpaste and put it on the tube? Could you just take the toilet paper and put it on the roll? Could you just take your clothes and put them in the dirty clothes, and can you please do that? Sure, yeah. He goes away a third time, comes back, and they're asleep, and he says, seriously? You can't help yourselves. And says, go ahead and take a nap, because you know what? I'm going to go and die for you. Look it up in the Bible. So here's some of the greatest news that is found at the core of Lutheran tradition. Even when we doubt ourselves, Jesus thinks we can move mountains. Number two, even when we doubt those around us, Jesus doesn't see us or them through our eyes. And even when we doubt Jesus, his love and his promises, Jesus loves us. Jesus still attends to our every need. You doubt yourself, I doubt myself. You doubt others, so do I. Sometimes we even doubt the Almighty. But God and Jesus says, I got you. All the same. Which is why Eliana and Tim sang, no doubt about it. In the midst of all the things that cause us to worry and doubt, may we never have a doubt that we are awesome in the sight of God. And God and Jesus are our biggest fans. Have a good week, and see you next week. Amen.